Right now, there's a massive trend among the ultra-wealthy. They're all obsessively preparing for some kind of doomsday scenario. This movement has many dimensions, but the most striking one is the construction of ultra-luxurious, high-tech fortresses designed to protect them from potential apocalyptic events. But unlike in the past, many of these fortresses aren't being built above ground anymore. They're being constructed underground. These underground bunkers are designed to be fully secure against nuclear weapons, pandemics that could spread on the surface, riots, and even civil wars. And when I say bunkers, I don't mean cramped rooms or basement shelters. I'm talking about megastructures that reflect the limitless wealth of the ultra-rich. Some are building entire underground cities beneath their mansions, costing millions, and in some cases, hundreds of millions, of dollars. These private sanctuaries are intended only for themselves and their loved ones. And it's not just a handful of billionaires doing this. What once seemed like a far-fetched concept straight out of a sci-fi movie has rapidly evolved into a booming industry. And it's expected to grow exponentially over the next decade. So, what's going on? Do the world's richest people know something we don't? What exactly are they preparing for? And why? Let's take a closer look. It all started when it was revealed that Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg purchased a vast portion of land in Hawaii and began building a $270 million complex known as the Kualoa Ranch. That's right, a $250 million project. Spanning 5.5 million square meters, the estate is surrounded by 2-meter-high walls and employs hundreds of Hawaiian workers. Security guards patrol the beaches around the property on quad bikes. But here's the kicker. Zuckerberg's ultra-secure compound isn't just above ground. He's also building a 500-square-meter underground Doomsday bunker. Due to secrecy, we don't know all the details, but it's said to have walls thick enough to withstand nuclear blasts, and it has systems to generate its own food and power. Zuckerberg is just one of the ultra-rich confirmed to have such a secure bunker. It's widely believed that Bill Gates has private bunkers beneath each of his homes. Others, like Elon Musk, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, Shaquille O'Neal, and Tom Cruise are also rumored to have bunkers or safe rooms in their homes. PayPal's former CEO, Peter Thiel, attempted to build a similar bunker complex in New Zealand's remote mountains in 2022, though authorities rejected his application. The current status is unclear, but according to the companies building these shelters, a growing number of ultra-wealthy individuals are choosing locations like New Zealand and Alaska. Why? Because in the event of civil unrest, or nuclear, biological, or chemical warfare, these low-population regions are expected to be among the last affected. And it's not just those areas. In the U.S., for instance, a decommissioned missile silo in Arkansas was restored and converted into a bunker and living space for around $1 million. Across Europe, former coal mines and hidden shelters deep in the Swiss Alps are also gaining popularity. These bunkers are equipped with features you probably couldn't even imagine. Many are more luxurious than 5-star resorts. They include artificial sunlight created by LED systems, hydroponic farms that can produce food year-round, fish farms, air-conditioned swimming pools, artificial waterfalls, bowling alleys, cinemas, spas, gyms, and even yoga studios. These underground worlds are designed to function like isolated micronations, with their own water filtration systems, independent power plants, massive generators, and chemical and radiological filters. Food supplies are often stocked to last decades, and some are designed for multi-generational living. Despite being underground, these bunkers include high-speed internet, satellite communications, virtual reality rooms, and even indoor gardens under artificial skies. All to help maintain psychological well-being during extended stays. These are true engineering marvels, but at the same time, they're a stark reminder of just how vast the gap between the ultra-rich and the rest of the world has become. Many of these bunkers cost between $15 to $20 million on average, while others exceed $100 million, Although the number of companies building these kinds of doomsday shelters is growing by the day, a few firms are leading the way. One of them is called SAFE, which stands for Strategically Armored and Fortified Environments. Its CEO, Corbi, is one of the most sought-after names in the world of ultra-wealthy bunker construction. According to him, one of their billionaire clients was so determined to keep his family unreachable during any potential uprising or attack that he commissioned the construction of a modern fortress on a 1 square kilometer plot of land. This structure was designed to withstand even a nuclear blast detonated 1.5 kilometers away. But that wasn't enough. They dug a 10-meter deep moat around the estate and filled it with water. Still not enough. The surface of the water was layered with a flammable chemical lighter than water, so that in the event of an attack, the billionaire could set it on fire to protect his family. And that still wasn't enough. To prevent aerial assaults such as paratroopers or helicopter landings, they installed high-powered water cannons capable of taking down incoming aircraft from 200 meters away. Still more, they built walls strong enough to stop a truck moving at 120 km/h and installed special tunnels designed to trap and gas any vehicle-based attackers. Absurd, right? But for these people, one bunker isn't enough. In Zuckerberg's Hawaii compound, just like the billionaire fortress mentioned above, there are multiple bunkers interconnected through tunnels so they can move from one to another if needed. Some companies even offer shared bunkers, selling access passes similar to vacation club memberships. For hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can secure the right to shelter in one of these facilities in the event of a catastrophe. But why? Why all this preparation? Of course, popular doomsday films and documentaries play a major role here. After all, it's not just us watching them. The rich are watching too. And unlike us, they can actually take action based on what they see. After all, they have all the time and money in the world. But here's the thing. Doomsday prepping isn't just a trend among billionaires. Back in the 1980s, during the height of nuclear war fears, the Survivalism, or Doomsday Preppers movement, took root in the United States. These are people who prepare for emergencies, from natural disasters to societal breakdowns, by stockpiling supplies, building their own bunkers, training in first aid and self-defense, and learning survival skills to live without electricity or running water. Personally, I believe everyone should have at least a basic level of preparedness for catastrophic scenarios. Knowing first aid, planning an escape route, or having a small stash of canned food isn't a bad idea. Especially as the memory of World War II fades, humanity seems to be repeating the kind of behavior that once led us into global conflict. The possibility of a Third World War, potentially involving nuclear weapons, isn't as far-fetched as it once seemed. But here's the problem. This very reasonable concern often spirals into exaggerated paranoia, and eventually conspiracy theories. And I'm not just talking about political conspiracies. Many people in the prepping community genuinely believe in threats like zombie outbreaks or alien invasions. This isn't normal or healthy. And what's worse is that, like most conspiracy theorists, doomsday preppers who fall into this mindset tend to believe in more and more conspiracies over time. For example, they believe the government is creating zombies in labs. That affects their political views. Or they believe in UFO-related myths, which lead them down rabbit holes involving Atlantis, pyramids, and ancient aliens. Some of them become consumed by these beliefs. It becomes part of their identity. And often, these are people who lack formal education and are especially vulnerable to misinformation. That's definitely a problem. But it's also important to recognize that the apocalypse preparations made by multi-billionaires are not remotely comparable to the kind that average people make. When regular people spend a few $1,000s on prepping, it's often rooted in a subjective overestimation of the actual risk. Yes, an apocalyptic event could happen. But statistically, the chances of it occurring in your lifetime are incredibly low. Yet, the wealthy act as if it's not only likely but imminent, and prepare accordingly, sometimes in extreme and absurd ways. But for them, prepping isn't paranoia. It's a rational investment. Think about it. Even if one of these bunkers costs $20 million for someone with $100 billion, that's the equivalent of someone with $1,000 spending just $5. Wouldn't you spend $5 to protect your family from a potential threat, even a small one? Of course you would. Because when it comes to safety, even the smallest chance can feel worth preparing for. Wouldn't you spend $5 to protect yourself and your family from a potential risk? Of course you would. No matter how small the risk, it would be worth it. That's exactly what the ultra-rich are doing. It's a form of Pascal's wager. If they don't invest that $5, or in their case, $20 million, into a bunker and nothing happens, they've saved that money. But they don't even need that money. Losing it would be like losing a single drop in an ocean. They wouldn't even notice. But if they decide not to invest it, and a real doomsday event occurs, then they'd be in serious trouble. So they spend what seems to us like an absurd amount of money with no hesitation. That's the whole idea. More importantly, the ultra-rich have noticed a dangerous trend. The gap between the poor and the rich is widening at an unprecedented rate in modern history. The poor are getting poorer, while the rich are becoming even richer. Just think, right now, the combined wealth of the 3 richest individuals in America, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, is greater than the total wealth of the bottom 50% of Americans. That's about 60 million families, or 165 million people in total. And this gap keeps growing. In 2019, it took the wealth of the top 5 richest people to equal that same amount. In 2017, it took 6 people. Soon, it might take just one individual to surpass the combined wealth of 200 or even 300 million Americans. And this trend is not much different in other countries either. Naturally, the rich are aware of this situation. They know things can't keep going this way forever. Historically, whenever wealth was distributed this unequally, it always ended in bloodshed. In all likelihood, one way or another, an ending like this will occur somewhere in the world, and the resulting unrest will inevitably spill over into other countries. So, it's not really surprising that the rich are already building bunkers to sustain themselves. You could compare this to the castles built in the Middle Ages and earlier, but I don't think that's a perfect comparison. Yes, throughout history, those in power have always built fortresses, keeps, and escape routes to retreat to in times of danger. For example, medieval lords, feudal barons, and kings constructed castles surrounded by tall walls, deep moats, and thick stone defenses. But there are some key differences. Back then, invasions and uprisings were far more common and bloody. So, in reality, the likelihood of facing such a risk was much higher than it is today. But, as I said, today's wealthy class possesses an amount of wealth that even medieval lords couldn't have dreamed of. So, these extravagant preparations cost them very little, relatively speaking. More importantly, medieval castles were essential to the continuity of the state. Kings would even require their lords to build castles as part of a broader national defense strategy. These castles protected not just the lord, but also the people living nearby. Today, however, the bunkers commissioned by the private sector have no value for modern states. For instance, compared to the protection provided by the U.S. military to its citizens, the walls around Mark Zuckerberg's mansion or the underground bunker he's having built offer zero benefit to anyone except himself and his family. And frankly, it's highly unclear how much benefit they'll get from these investments in the long run. Think about it. For a bunker to even matter, there would have to be a catastrophic event that brings the entire world to its knees. Sure, they might be able to survive for a few months in these bunkers, but then what? Humans are social beings. Eventually, the kinds of conflicts and divisions you see in post-apocalyptic movies would begin. You can't find eternal peace under an artificial sky. Resources would be limited. Spare parts, repair materials, maintenance of advanced technologies, and the production of medicine. Without all of that, how long can you truly survive? These billionaires are already hiring private security forces to protect them. But when money loses its power, why would a security guard risk their life to protect you? That's why they're already signing contracts with security firms outlining post-doomsday resource-sharing agreements. But who knows how much those promises will actually be worth. This is partly why the doomsday preparations made by the poor are, at least, more internally consistent. They don't rely on someone else to protect them. They're built on self-sufficiency. The rich, on the other hand, are pouring money into these absurdities simply because they have nowhere else to spend it. It's strange, isn't it? While the rest of us aren't even sure if we'll make it to the end of this month or this year, the rich are already building modern pyramids. Just like the pharaohs who built pyramids to protect their wealth and prepare for the afterlife, today's ultra-rich are building underground shelters in an attempt to achieve a kind of immortality, or at least a secure afterlife on Earth. And who knows? If their plans actually work, maybe in a post-apocalyptic world, these bunkers will act as mini-states and play a role in humanity's continuation. But before we get too caught up in that fantasy, we need to realize something. All these fortified structures and the hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars being spent on them are not a real solution to the actual problem. Even if a handful of ultra-rich people manage to survive underground while the world above is destroyed, what meaning will that hold? Without culture, art, science, society, diversity, or human values, what kind of life is that? It's nothing more than mere biological existence. At best, the rich are treating the symptoms. It's nothing more than a temporary band-aid. If we want to solve the root cause of the disease, we need to address the underlying issues that threaten our current global system, like the environment, the economy, inequality, social cohesion, healthcare, and justice. And we can't leave the solutions to the whims of the rich. Because those who are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on paranoid scenarios are the same ones who are driving the rest of the world toward the very disasters they fear. They are the ones financing the industries responsible for most of the greenhouse gas emissions causing the climate crisis. They use political lobbying to increase their own wealth while making everyone else poorer. They support policies that deepen social inequality or turn a blind eye to countless societal wounds for the sake of their own interests. Now, they're trying to escape the consequences by building underground palaces. The real question is, how much longer are we going to accept this? I'll leave that for you and the comments to think about.